Okay.
All right, I think we're live. Um, we don't have anybody in here yet. Let's wait for Nick to get back. Nick went to get Edward. Anyone that's listening for the replay. Let's see. Do we got Nick back yet? My notifications going off. We got Nick back yet? Hang on, I gotta mute. I'm not on StreamYards right now, Edward. Do you see Nick in there? Or I
No,
meant Matt.
no, I don't see Nick in here yet.
All right, he's probably stuck on the phone. Do we have anybody watching yet?
It doesn't say.
I got 7. Um, okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna
yeah,
do
it's
the.
saying 7 now. 7 watching now.
Oh, Nick's back. Nick, what did Edward say? We're live. Nick, you're muted.
Sorry. Hey, what's up, guys?
And
I didn't get in touch with him, but he'll be here.
he'll
Probably
be
got
here.
something going on.
Okay, guys. Hi LBG, how you doing? We've got a Waco show coming tonight. We're still expecting Edward. I've got Matt and Nick here with us. You guys want to say hello?
Hello.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
I have made a 5-minute silent movie that we're going to play in the background while we're talking so that you have something to watch. So I am going to figure out how to do it. It might take me a minute. Okay, Nick, tell me when this shows up on the screen.
I see it on the screen.
Is it full size?
No.
Is it full size
Yes.
now?
Yes, it is.
And it's on silent, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is footage I collected from Waco. A lot of it is duplicated, but some of it is up close shots, and some of the duplication is because you're going to see stuff and go, shit, I need a double take of that. So this is the FBI raid, and then there's stuff from the fire too. Um, I just wanted to start. I think everybody's familiar with Waco. I just wanted to kind of do a timeline of about where in history this was. It was February to April of 1993. And just to put it in perspective, Ruby Ridge was in August of 92. And the Oklahoma bombing was exactly 2 years to the date of the Waco fire. And strangely enough, Timothy McVeigh was a spectator at Waco. I've got a video I'm going to play later of him. You know, people gathered around from all over to watch the siege. So I thought that was kind of odd. Also, the Brady Bill was reintroduced immediately after Waco. I found that strange. Um, so, Nick and Matt, who wants to go next? I've got a bunch of notes here. That was kind of my introduction. But do one of you guys want to give people that don't know anything about Waco kind of the timeline of the raid and then the 51-day siege and then the fire?
Sure. I mean, Matt, if you'd like to, you can
I
go.
you. It sounds like you've looked into this a lot more than I did. So you go
Well,
ahead.
on February 28th of 1993, the ATF had a warrant to raid Mount Carmel, which was the Branch Davidian compound. Um, it was supposed to be a surprise, but unknowing to them, a news reporter stopped and asked a mailman for directions to get to the compound because it was going to be raided. And it just so happens that that mailman turned out to be a Branch Davidian. So the numbers that I've heard is between 50 and 75 ATF agents, all decked out in tactical gear, raided the Branch Davidian compound. And the Branch Davidians knew they were coming. So, at that point, there was a gunfight that lasted, I believe it was 2.5 to 3 hours, where 4 agents were dead. I'm not sure exactly how many Branch Davidians. There were 76 ATF agents. And 2 4-man teams. What's that?
Okay, so you found that number?
Yeah, 76. So I did find the number. Yes, I have been researching this afternoon, and I've got my lovely girlfriend here helping me.
How weird that there were 76 ATF agents in the first raid, and there was also supposedly 76 people that died in the fire. But I also found the number 80 for the fire, so that goes back and forth. But okay, go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
At that point, a ceasefire was negotiated between the ATF and the Branch Davidians, and that was the start of what ended up being 51 days of siege that ended up with FBI. Well, I mean, I don't even think they were FBI tanks. They were Bradley fighting vehicles inserting gas into the building. All the meanwhile telling them, we're not attacking you, we're just putting gas into your building, and eventually, from my understanding, causing the building to burn, killing everybody but I think 6 who got out. Kathy, I think that's the number I remember.
9 got out.
9 got out. Okay.
Escaped the fire. Not the ones that got released.
Right. That's the ones who escaped the fire. So
hauled right off to jail.
Yep. Hauled right off to jail too. So that's my quick recap of what happened, but there's obviously a whole bunch in the middle.
Yeah, Kimberly, the Timothy McVeigh thing, I'm going to show the video. It's only like a 50-second clip. But this one here, I don't know how far. Has Nick been talking for 5 minutes? I'm looking to see. I got to find where this video is to see where it's at. Okay, this is over in a second, and then I can show McVeigh.
Yeah. He was recorded. Timothy McVeigh was recorded hanging around outside the perimeter.
Footage. Yeah.
Did it? I've seen it a few times, but yeah, he was recorded hanging around outside of the police line distributing bumper stickers.
Well, this has been 30 years, and there was a lot of stuff I forgot about.
Right.
And it's like when you did Timothy McVeigh and the Netflix show that just came out, I'm like, I don't know, is this propaganda? I couldn't remember, and I was like, it sounded a little familiar. So then I went hunting and did find the footage. Anyways, I'm waiting for this to be over. I think it's over in a second. Okay, it is. So I can stop screen sharing. Now we're all back on. And then I can show. Hang on, I'm not so good with this screen sharing stuff, guys. Sorry. I'm going to start deleting stuff that I already showed. All right, I'm going to pull up Timothy McVeigh just because we've been talking about it. Present, share screen. Okay, this is a real short clip, guys. There's my copyright disclaimer.
All sorts of folks that felt moved to come down to see what was going on at Waco.
Just arrived today. I guess somebody told me a lot of people would be scared to put something on there, like this.
Timothy McVeigh had already apparently been very concerned about what had happened at Ruby Ridge. So he came down to Waco and sold bumper stickers with pro-gun, anti-government slogans. He saw the raid as clear evidence of what the government would do to try to confiscate guns and persecute gun owners.
Okay, that was quick. Anyways, yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And then he did the Oklahoma City bombing, if he did it, exactly 2 years to the date of the Waco fire. I'm trying to find these links so I can get rid of them. Just a brief, thing in case stuff's not fresh in everybody's memory. On February, what was the date you guys had? February 26th when the
26th.
search warrant was signed. And then February 28th, they went and did this huge ATF raid, and there were, how many did you guys say?
76 is the number that I've came up with
76
so far.
agents, yeah. So on the search warrant, I went to the ATF website. I couldn't find a copy of the search warrant for why they were at his house. But I did find a list of what they thought he had. And then I did some math. So what they thought he had was 136 firearms. And if you divide that by the 53 adults that were in the compound, that's only 2.5 guns a person. So if you're preparing for the apocalypse or shit hits the fan or you're just a hunter, 2.5 guns is nothing. Then they said that they had 700 magazines. So again, divide that by 53 people, and it's only like 5 per gun, I think. Oh, I'm doing the math wrong on there. It wasn't divided by 53. It was divided by how many guns there were. So yeah, there were 5 per gun. Then there were some reports and some documentaries saying that he had millions of rounds of ammo. Well, in the ATF search warrant document, it said 200,000 rounds of ammo. So that's only 1,400 rounds per gun and 3773 per adult, but 1,400 rounds per gun if you're using a semi-automatic rifle, even to go hunting into the shooting range, isn't crap for having for ammo in your ammo box. So to me, that didn't, basically jump out at me. None of this jumped out at me as, oh, they need to go, send 75 guys to raid his house. Also, he had in the search warrant listed 110 upper and lower receivers for AR-15s and M16 rifles. Well, if he didn't have those upper and lower receivers assembled, there would be nothing illegal about them, because in that time in 1993 in Texas, it's like you could buy those. So there's nothing that would warrant a search warrant for that. They said he had grenade launcher attachments, but here again, it was legal to mail order those or get them at a swap meet or whatever, and they weren't illegal to have as long as
Kathy
you have
Edwards
them
in the
put
basement.
together. Oh, good. Okay. Let me go pull them up. Hello, Edward.
Hey, Kathy. Sorry I'm late. Hey, how's it going, Matt, Nick?
Hey,
You're
Edward.
okay.
What's up, brother?
What's up?
Okay, also it said 400 empty grenades. Well, again, there's nothing wrong with having empty grenades. It's like they're just metal parts. And another thing that was listed in the search warrant, the final thing was black powder. So I have muzzleloader here and I have 2 cans of black powder. It's not illegal to have. So anyways, everything in this ATF search warrant, none of it screamed to me, oh, go raid this place. You need to shut these people down. It was all normal stuff. Regular people, preppers, hunters, people just have this stuff. Maybe not the grenade parts, but they still weren't illegal. So, anyways, now that Edward is here, I know Edward was going through some of these documents. So I am going to turn it over to Edward for a minute and see what he came up with.
All right. What do we cover so far? So,
just review of the timeline, basic, I didn't go over. We didn't go in depth with anything. We showed the Timothy McVeigh video. I showed some silent footage, and we kind of, gave rough numbers on stuff. So anything you want to jump into is good. Xander actually sent me the FLIR footage and also a documentary that used it and broke it down. So we got some Davidians being massacred here on the FLIR footage, which I had forgotten all about. But so I haven't covered that yet either. So yeah, just go ahead. I'm going to mute and we're going to hand it over to Edward for a few minutes. If you need me to screen share, let me know.
Okay. So even with the, I don't know, I think that the warrant didn't really justify a search based on the weapons and stuff there, but I think that, there was a lot of things that were going on in that cult, sexual abuse of children and stuff like that was going on, I believe, that merited them being taken down. Maybe not in the way that they were taken down.
I would agree with that.
They could have arrested,
But they
David Koresh anywhere.
I'm sorry.
At that point, what?
At that point, then they should have got the warrants for that stuff and not some trumped up warrant on some, possibly illegal guns they had in there. I mean,
Well, the thing is even if they were going to do this, they could have served this warrant in a different way. This is quoted
Right.
as being the largest gunfight on American soil since the Civil War. I don't know if that's accurate. I did do a bunch of Googling on my phone last night before I went to bed, hunting for, you know, back in the days, of the gangsters, Bonnie and Clyde days. I was like, there's got to be a bigger gun battle. And then I was like, no, I'm getting veered off track. So I just quit doing that. But yeah, if this is like the biggest thing, there are other people that have worse crap like this at their house. And it's like, I think the way they did it with that many agents and tanks and helicopters, I mean, they were going to war. And there wasn't enough stuff on that list to warrant what they
Right.
did. Okay, go ahead.
Kathy, if I can jump in a second. Sorry that I keep calling you that, True Seeker.
Oh, that's all right. Everyone knows my name.
I have confirmed that people within the Branch Davidians had Type 1 federal firearms license via
you just
an
confirmed it?
article. Yeah, it came out in May 3rd, 1993. It says ATF license may have helped arm the Branch Davidian compound. So I will get that sent to you.
Here's
you don't
another
need to
thing. Who
send it
thinks
as
that?
long as you've got it in front of you and you told the people in the thing. They know. I like to know we have documentation to back up if somebody like questions something. So as
Yeah.
long as you have that, if somebody asks later, we'll be like, go get it.
Sure.
Who thinks the tear gas might have caused the fire? And
Tear
who
gas
thinks that they
caused the fire. 100%. I've got another video I'm going to show later of one of the survivors that describes the tear gas and stuff really good.
For people that want to dispute the tear gas doesn't start a fire, there's multiple documented standoffs in which tear gas did. There's one Fresno in 1973. You could look up Los Angeles 1974 standoff between law enforcement that ended with when tear gas turned into a fire.
It's fire.
1981 in West Fork, Arkansas. 1983 in Smithfield, Arkansas. 1985 in Philadelphia. 87 in Escondido, California. All of them were a standoff. Tear gas was deployed. There was a fire, and everybody in
I've
that
got
place
another
died.
video I'm going to pull up in a little while that actually has, survivors talking about they watched these fireballs go through, and it happened to be as those tanks were poking holes. They weren't poking holes in the building, as they say. When you see it on video, they're taking chunks of the house down. So they're letting all this oxygen in there. So, I mean, it was just ripe for explosions. And there's survivors that are like, no, we saw this explosion go from one end to the other. And you can see on the FLIR video where the explosions are going up. It's like right where they were poking the big sections of building that they call holes out. So, I mean, I definitely 100% not a doubt in my mind. I do not think that they sat down and said, hey, let's burn these people to death. I think they shot in the tear gas, it caught a fire, and then they had to quickly cover it up so they didn't get in trouble. But I don't think they set out to burn them to death. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
Even though they did it on purpose and it was their fault, I don't think that they were being real irresponsible, but I don't really think that they, meant to do it. They thought the people would come flooding out, which a lot of them did, and they got executed, which we'll show the FLIR footage later.
And I've seen that FLIR footage too, True Seeker.
Well, I've got the FLIR footage. Xander sent it to me, but then he also sent me
the documentary
where they break
seen
it down. So it's like we don't have to break it down; we can just play that.
Where they show the shots coming out of the back of the Bradley.
Yep.
Yep.
Keep going, Edward, because I know you were on a roll and I interrupted you.
Sorry, brother.
That's fine. There's no documented. Somebody saying there's no documented proof sex with children. David Koresh's youngest wife was 10 when. I mean.
Hi, Shay. Did someone say no documented
plenty
proof
of documents
he did
where
affairs? I don't think anyone said that in here. I think he was talking about something else. Essay on children has never been
Crisis
verified.
Cast
Oh,
said
okay.
this.
Well, there were survivors
That has been verified.
in interviews have admitted it. So I don't want to say it's been verified as far as doing examinations at the hospital on these kids because they're dead. But there were survivors that said, yeah, that was normal. The Netflix thing, actually, the second episode was making me furious because this yellow shirt girl was totally defending the children thing. And I'm like yelling at my TV going, are you fucking kidding me, lady? She's like, well, blah, blah, blah. And she starts going through the whole Bible thing. And I'm like, you've had 30 years to deprogram and you still believe this? So, yeah, I thought that was weird.
Well, it was the cult, I mean, people, they get brainwashed and it just sticks in their head for the rest of their lives.
Well, she went to prison too.
Yeah,
You would think in prison she'd have got a good introduction to why we don't abuse children. Because those moms that are locked up in prison that aren't with their kids, they don't like this, abuse of children thing. So I would think in all the years she was in prison, they would have knocked some sense into her.
Yeah.
But
so the numbers here I have is 44 people left the compound at one time or another during the standoff.
Yeah, for the 51 days, he let people were leaving. He didn't keep them trapped there. It's like they were every couple of days another batch was coming out.
And what's the latest? 75 people died, and they've only identified how many of them?
Well, I've got 76 died and 80 died. So there's two other numbers. But the identifying, they haven't all been identified. And some of these people were blasted away by bullets. And two ladies had a miscarriage and also burned in the fire. So there's some hanky-panky going on there with the feds.
Absolutely.
But anyways, keep going with the numbers. I keep interrupting poor Edward.
No, you're fine.
And that's quiet.
All right.
John, you said something about the PatCon. Xander said something about PatCon too, and I don't know what that is. Do any of you guys?
PatCon is what? PatCon, really?
Well, Xander talked about it, and then John's talking about it, and it's like, I don't know. I'm sure it's a code for something or an acronym, but it's not ringing a bell.
Officially terminated in 1993, 6 months after the siege. Am I going to explain what PatCon is? Or what?
Yeah, just tell me what PatCon is. Not like you don't have to answer John's thing because he's just making a statement. John, type in there. I heard 23 of the deaths were children, Kimberly, but the thing is there is between all the documentaries and all the interviews and things that I sifted through in the last couple of days, the numbers all bounce. So I mean, none of it is drastically, 23 kids, 25 kids. It's like none of it, is anything that you're like, oh, they're lying. It's like, I think it's just different, statistics being thrown out.
Are you ready? PatCon, the FBI's secret war against the Patriot movement and how infiltration tactics relate to radicalizing influences.
Oh, I got a good one here since you said that, since you brought it up. I don't know if you people know this, but right after Waco is when the Brady Bill got reintroduced. Just like right after 9/11, we got the Patriot Act. So these things do set balls in motion. I mean, I'm not saying they did it on purpose to get the Brady Bill passed, but it's like they use that momentum because everybody's charged up and it helps pass their stuff. But anyways, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
All right, so this basically it's just a brief history of the Branch Davidians, I guess. It was a splinter group from Seventh-day Adventists, right? In 1934, it was founded by Victor Hotef, right? In 35, he moved to the outskirts of Waco, started a commune there. He died in 1955. His wife became the leader of the sect and predicted that the second coming would occur on April 22nd, 1959. Under the leadership of Ben Roden, they split and formed a new sect known as the Branch Davidians.
Nick, in case people are interested, and I know Edward doesn't know this, tell him how many books you made your poor girlfriend bring home from the library today.
Only 4.
So Nick got 4 books set in his lap a few hours ago, so he's been a busy bee. And he can't even highlight in them because they're library books.
Wow.
Right. Well, that's the perks of having a girlfriend that works. The numbers that I just came up with say 80 people were killed, but again, that varies.
80 is what's on the monument.
80 is what's on the monument. Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't dig into it to find out, like, you know, is that fire people or just deaths in general, or did they add on the ATF agents? It's like I just saw the monument. I actually
Right.
have the monument to show that video with the survivor. I've got a little snippet of someone that was
Yeah.
Waco of the monument.
So I wanted to add on a little bit to what Edward was just saying. When Louise Roden moved into the leadership after Ben Roden died, for a time, she called her followers the Living Waters, but they ultimately remained the Branch Davidians. David Koresh did not emphasize a group name. Most followers led by Koresh identified themselves as Bible students or less frequently as students of the seven seals.
Right, because they're a 7-day Adventist.
Yeah.
Or they're a branch off from that.
Yeah.
What's his name? David Koresh was actually Vernon Howell.
Vernon Howell.
After Lois died, a clash for control of the Davidians between Lois's sons, George and Vernon Howell, ensued. And George was committed to the Texas State Mental Hospital, and Vernon took over as the leader of the Branch Davidians, and then changed
there was
his
some
name
type
to
of
David
shootout
Koresh.
too. Yeah, there was some type of shootout too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something
in my
happened
perusing.
Fresh, yes. Does anyone have details on that? Because I just skimmed over it
On what?
because I was focused on Waco.
There was
Prior
a
to Waco, there was a search warrant problem with Koresh.
Probably because
yes.
he had his, I don't know, maybe it had something to do with the name change.
It was back in the history, like when I was going through the history.
Yeah,
I
it was
just kinda skipped
prior.
over it.
It had to do with a gunfight that took place at Mount Carmel between Vernon Howell at the time and whoever he was fighting to take control.
His brother George, and then
yeah.
George was committed to the mental hospital.
Right.
So
I think David Koresh may have caught charges on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, when I was seeing that, because I was looking at so much stuff, I was just skimming through. It's like I knew Edward was going to cover the history. So, Matt, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Do you have anything you want to add, or are you just chilling?
I'm just listening to what everybody's talking about
Okay, if you want to jump in, just jump in.
and watching the chat.
Okay. Oh, good. Everyone needs to behave because Matt's kind of strict.
Right.
He watches the chat.
So
He's got a heavy hand.
Just a little backstory on the tear gas. The tear gas began being sprayed at approximately 6 a.m. and lasted until 11:40 a.m. 25 minutes later,
400 canisters of
Yeah.
tear gas in that
Yep.
short of amount of time. They were blasting these people. I would think if they didn't have gas masks, they would have been choking.
oh, they had to be.
So
I wonder why it
wait,
started a fire.
Oh, CC,
Right.
that's hilarious.
Oh, in Waco, the FBI had 2 command posts. The main one was located at a hangar at a former Air Force base, while the forward command post was located in a recreational vehicle near their compound. The main command post was used by commanders, negotiators, behavioral scientists. In Washington, D.C., the crisis was managed at the Strategic Information Operations Center. Representatives of the Critical Incident Negotiation Team in Waco handled or supervised the negotiations. The members of the team had extensive training and experience in negotiations and negotiation tactics. There were 2 shifts of negotiations at Waco, with approximately 5 individuals assigned to each shift. The overall on-site commander was Special Agent in Charge Jeffrey Jamar from the San Antonio office of the FBI. His jurisdiction normally included the areas in and around San Antonio, Austin, and Waco. Special agents in charge from 3 other offices also assisted Jamar. There were numerous other units, offices, individuals. All times listed will be Central Time unless otherwise indicated. Although his name at birth was Vernon Wayne Howell, he had his name legally changed to David Koresh. He will be referred to throughout this report as David Koresh. As will
In the background, guys, I'm going to interrupt you a second, Edward. In the background, I'm playing in silent. And I'm playing it in fast forward, so it's going, double time. But this is the footage of when they were when Nick was talking about the tear gas, and then this is going to lead into the fire. So you can watch this in the background while we're all talking and have something to look at. And also, don't forget it's in double time, so it really things weren't moving this fast. It took about an hour for the place to burn to the ground. Okay, go ahead.
Now this is coming from the Department of Justice's report, so it may not be accurate. I don't think it is totally accurate, but this is just what they say, and then we can dispute what we think is wrong about it here in a minute. The ATF began to execute the arrest warrant for David Koresh and the search warrant for the compound at 9:30 a.m. and came under immediate gunfire. Negotiations began almost immediately with those people inside the compound to effect a ceasefire. Somewhere between 10 and 11, ATF Deputy Director Dan Hartnett called FBI Assistant Deputy Director Gao and requested the assistance of FBI negotiators in Waco. Gao directed Special Agent in charge Jamar to send experienced negotiators to Waco. Jamar decided to send supervisory Special Resident Agent Byron Sage, who was a trained negotiator. During and immediately following the shootout, two separate yet coordinated channels of negotiations occurred with those in the compound. The principal goal of the negotiations, after establishing a ceasefire and removing the dead and wounded ATF agents, was securing the release of the children inside the compound. In the afternoon meeting at ATF headquarters, Larry Potts, an FBI Assistant Director for the Criminal Investigation Division, was briefed on the scenario. The Texas Rangers were immediately deployed to Waco. Within a few days, 32 Rangers were assigned, first to assist the ATF and then later to be the lead agency for the ongoing criminal investigation. The Rangers assumed the responsibility for the ongoing investigations because Jamar, in deference to the ATF, who had lost 4 agents, wanted to limit the role of the FBI to just the resolution of the standoff. Additionally, a memorandum of understanding between the FBI and ATF give the ATF jurisdiction in cases involving the injured or dead of their own agents. The contingent of Texas Rangers was headed by Captain David Burns. During the early conversations, Koresh informed the negotiators that he had been wounded. He had been shot in the hip area, with the bullet exiting the area of his upper buttocks. He had also been shot in the left wrist. On several occasions, the negotiators offered medical assistance, but Koresh refused all such efforts. The negotiators knew that others had been wounded or were perhaps dead. Koresh refused to provide any detailed information. Koresh refused to give the number of people in the compound or their ages or identities. He also insisted in these early conversations on being called David Koresh rather than Vernon Howell. Koresh demanded that he be able to broadcast his religious teachings over the radio before he or anyone would come out of the compound. The negotiators agreed to the broadcast, and Koresh agreed to send the children out and to resolve the situation peacefully. The broadcast occurred at approximately 4 p.m. over Dallas radio station KRLD. The message was rebroadcast 2 additional times before 5 p.m. At 4:55, several ATF agents were ambushed by 3 individuals as the agents crossed the field near the compound. The ATF agents returned the gunfire, killing 1 individual and capturing another. The third one escaped. The person who died was later identified as Michael Schroeder. The person arrested was Norman Washington Allison, aka Delroy Nash. And the people who escaped was Robert Kendrick. Kendrick was arrested several days later. All 3 individuals were Branch Davidians who'd been at another location called Magbag and were attempting to shoot their way into the compound. At 6:14, David Koresh broke off contact, demanding that his message be rebroadcast again. This occurred a short while later, approximately 7:38. 7:55 p.m., the negotiators began very concerned that CNN was conducting a telephone interview with Koresh. The interview was broadcast on the 8 p.m. news. At 8:55, the first two children came out of the compound. They were Angelica Sonobe, age 6, and Crystal Sonobe, age 3. At 9:42, two more children came out, Renee Fagan and Naharia Fagan, age 6 and 4. Negotiations continued with no additional progress that night. So that was day one.
Also, by the end of day one, there were a total of 120 ATF agents on the ground. I wanted to add that in.
Well, don't forget about the mailman guys, because they were going to have the element of surprise with this attack. But a news guy was down on the street, and the mailman pulled up, and he told him what was going on. And the mailman happened to be a Branch Davidian, David's cousin. So there was no surprise when they went up to raid this house. It's like
and there
inside
was
knew they
even
were coming.
there was even talk within the ATF of calling off the raid, but
They should have.
they just didn't have, for whatever reason, they decided to go forward with it. And
Well,
that
once
was
the
dumb.
people inside knew that they were coming to raid them, if they really thought they had all this firepower, those 4 ATF agents that died the day of the raid and the 20 others that were injured, it's like blood on their hands for going in once they knew it wasn't going to be a surprise.
And Kathy, it's not just the mailman. They had an ATF agent inside Mount Carmel that morning.
Oh, yeah.
They had an undercover agent that was inside the building that morning when they already knew that the raid was coming. So they had it confirmed, they had it from 2 different people.
Angela,
they
yes,
should
80
not.
people burned in that fire that you're seeing.
I saw
including
25
23 children.
Oh, 23. Okay. I keep
Well,
getting
the
different
number
numbers.
changes, yeah.
Yeah.
I get different ones too. But they're all roughly, I know Angela's watching the fire on the screen and she's like, oh my God, yes, they're burning right now. Babies are burning. 2 ladies had a miscarriage and then they burned too.
And then,
Oh, 80, yeah, Kim. I heard 76 and 80 for the people that burned in the building. I probably misquoted something.
And I heard 25 kids, you heard 23. I don't know if there's still some that haven't even been identified, I guess. So, as far as that, we may never know.
Terrific.
But, I think now would be a good time to get into the way that the FBI handled the situation once they were on the scene, because after, I think it was March 2nd, I believe the ATF gave over total control to the FBI.
Well, the ATF was actually, they were doing negotiations.
Yeah.
And then the FBI, I think it was even their negotiator that was handling this
it was Gary Nostner.
49 days. And then when the other guy, they were like, nope, we're not going to negotiate anymore. And it's like, really? You're going to burn these people up instead?
Well, President Clinton got an update on the 1st, actually. And it's, which said, and the president said that it's the FBI's policy to negotiate until the situation's resolved, right? And then that's basically what the instructions that President Clinton gave them was, that the FBI was to negotiate until it's resolved. So.
But at some point, there was a disconnect between Jamar, the FBI HRT, and the FBI negotiators, where they were all playing off of different playbooks. And that is when things started to go bad. That is when they started using the psychological parts of the stuff, the lights, the music, the sounds. After they started that stuff, not a single Davidian came out of that compound.
Right.
And that's just a fact.
Well, let's move back to day whatever it is, right? So by 1:30 p.m. on, I think the 1st, they cut all the telephone lines. Only 2 lines could dial out, but only to the negotiators. The FBI command post was fully operational. I think they got 10 or 11 kids released that day. They spoke 7 hours on the phone to 15 different people. 63 different conversations. And once they realized that their telephone access was cut off, and the FBI began to move in armored vehicles to help secure the perimeter, I think that Koresh really got pissed.
Well, they also blasted the crazy, psychological music crap.
Yeah,
that
rabbits dying. Yeah,
and the whole thing is like, okay, you have a building where you are claiming that these people inside are all crazy cult people that have all these weapons, and now you're gonna like try to drive them crazy.
Well,
It's
let's
like,
not
what were they
forget.
thinking?
Let's not forget that David Koresh was preaching his interpretation of Revelations.
Oh, and they were following it to a T.
And they were following his interpretation to the letter. We will fight the federal government. They will move in with tanks, and we will die and be sent to heaven. And
So
David
all the people
Koresh
he
will come
brainwashed were
back down
watching
to
this
lead God's
unfold in
army.
front of them.
Yep. That is a fact. So I did read a book, and I don't have the book in front of me because I have it on audiobook, but it was by Gary Nostner. He was the lead hostage negotiator within, well, up until the point that he was sent away because he was getting angry. And he talks a lot in the book about how, you know, the FBI was talking out of both sides of their mouth, meaning that he was telling David Koresh one thing and trying to ease tensions, and the hostage rescue team decided it would be a good idea to drive around in tanks and crush all of his cars. And you know, the people inside are going, well, what are we supposed to believe? You don't even have, you know, the ear of your commanders out there. They're doing absolutely the opposite of what you're telling us. So that did cause the situation to intensify slightly.
Okay, well, they say on the 2nd is when he demanded that CNN play his tape, right?
He did a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know about the date of that, but there was a lot of weird stuff where he like wanted to be able to preach and get his message out, and he'd negotiate for, I'll let a couple more kids out if you do this and that.
But they were
That
adamant
was
that
weird.
he say that I agree that upon broadcasting of this tape, I will immediately come out peacefully with all of my people.
Yes.
Right.
He
Right.
lied.
And then he lied, of course.
But lying
then
doesn't mean
after
all your
that-
people get burned to a crisp.
No,
Or tear
yeah,
gas.
exactly.
Even if they didn't mean to set the fire, the 40 canisters of tear gas, nothing that happened that day warranted 400 canisters of tear gas going in that building with children. Children
Right.
didn't have gas masks. I don't know if anyone in the chat or whatever is military, but they do a thing where they send the soldiers through the gas chamber, and they have their gas masks on, but they have to pull them off so that they can see and feel. And there was I've seen videos of it where these guys come out and they're like coughing and all red and their eyes are going, you know, and it's like, so these people in there were in there for more than 10 seconds with this gas. And if it's making soldiers get all sick without a gas mask, can you imagine how these people inside were feeling? 400 canisters is horrible for 80 people. I mean, they could have popped in 6 or 7 and done the job.
Yeah, and you know what was absolutely ridiculous? When they were playing over the loudspeaker while they were inserting this gas. This is not an attack. Don't shoot back at us. We will defend ourselves. While
I'm
they're running
listening.
while they're busting down the damn building with their tanks.
Yeah, I'm listening and watching that, and I'm like, they're gonna go over the loudspeaker and say, "This is not an assault or whatever. Please do not shoot back." And it's like, you got tanks surrounding my house, and they're throwing tear gas in, and my babies are inside. You bet your ass I'm firing back.
I mean, I would just have problems with tanks driving around my house, let alone
Exactly. I don't want to sound like a
breaking
crazy bitch,
down,
but
you know?
it's like if they're doing all this crap and my children are inside, it's like, why would you not shoot back? You got to protect your kids. CC says if he was old enough, he might have been a Branch Davidian. Who's talking? Everyone got quiet.
I was reading, sorry.
Edward and Matt, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
When I interrupt, just jump back in where you left off when I finally shut up.
Edward, I know that you have an interesting take on cults, and there was I believe a list that you had or something along those lines, and you've done a lot of research on that. I was wondering if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. I'm dealing with a cult in Colorado. That's why my emblem is now a Colorado flag with a Branch Davidian's logo in the middle of it. Because I'm dealing with a Colorado cult right now that they
Yeah.
don't. A lot of them don't realize they're in a cult, but they are. But yeah, I'll touch on that.
Go ahead, talk about the cults. I'm waiting for this video. When this gets over, then I want to play the interview with the David, that one survivor.
Right.
That
Okay.
kind of wrote a book and he's pretty vocal. But yeah, go ahead because I'm still waiting for this to be over. I'm just typing in the chat.
All right. So here, actually, I could do one better. I could save myself a lot of words, and
Hey,
I can
Edward,
find a video.
brother, I got a new shirt for you. I'll have to send you a picture of it. Outside of the Branch Davidian compound, they were selling cult T-shirts.
I saw a video with that in it.
I just came across it. I'm not gonna lie, my
Well, those
girlfriend came across the
spectators
picture
were
of it.
doing some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of Americans, from what I read, agreed with the ATF and FBI doing this stuff based on the child abuse that was going on. But the thing is the ATF warrant had nothing to do with child abuse. So even though, you want to sit back and go, well, they got what they deserved, it's like that wasn't what the warrant was for. It was for weapons.
Right. Well, and they also didn't give Janet Reno the whole truth when they approached her about putting the tear gas in there. They just kind of hit her with basic, they're in there, abusing. I mean, and this, don't get me wrong, this stuff is absolutely horrible, but they didn't hit her with the true facts. They basically told her that the kids were in there being abused and this and that and the other thing, and we need to go in now. That's why she gave the order to do it. And
right.
It's my understanding.
Religion-wise, back in the day of Noah and stuff like that, people did take wives at that age. I am not defending it in any way. I think it's totally wrong that they did have children involved, but these people were crazy religion people. So in their minds, they may have just thought this was normal, according to the word of God. But the rest of us are like, oh, hell no.
Right. Yep.
Well, Koresh did claim that he was the Lord.
Right.
Remember?
Oh, yeah. He said he was God to his
Yeah,
people. The Messiah. The second coming. He would tell his people that.
Well,
when
I
did
think
his
he was on
daily
the
Bible
phone.
studies.
It was a phone call, a recording of a phone call or something. He's like, I am the Lord or whatever.
He had a
So-
lot
Yeah,
of
he did
interviews,
say that.
taped interviews floating around.
Yeah.
Can I read y'all something real quick?
Sure.
On March 12th, Janet Reno put one hand on a Bible, raised her right hand, and swore to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. She had been briefed on the situation at Waco before her swearing in as President Bill Clinton's Attorney General. America's first female general had a particular interest in cases involving children. As state attorney of Florida-Dade County, she had mounted a much publicized crusade against child abusers. As Attorney General, she said she intended to do everything I possibly can to protect Americans' children from abuse and violence. Briefed on the crisis at Mount Carmel, Reno recalled being told the Bureau had information that babies were being beaten. I specifically asked, "You really mean babies?" The answer was yes. He's slapping babies around.
They lied.
So she was not given the truth at all.
Well, there's been no survivor testimony about babies being slapped or beaten. That doesn't mean it wasn't happening in there.
That is true.
But I haven't heard any interviews with anyone that ever was part of that church saying anything about that. They do admit to the minor sex though.
Well, by that time in the siege, it was costing the FBI $1 million a day with all the equipment. There was roughly 700 total law enforcement that
Oh
was
yeah, they
surrounding.
brought in Texas Rangers, National
Yeah.
Guard, all kinds of stuff for this.
Yes.
Like
Abrams
700 men
tanks,
a day.
Bradleys.
Yep.
You know, I saw Chinooks flying around, Hueys. I mean,
They were
$1 million
out for war
a day. They
for
were
a
out
dude
for
with
war.
a handful of guns.
Yeah. And I saw Pastor Mo say something earlier in the chat, and I agree with her 100%. Why could he have not been taken off that property? If he would have been taken off that property, he could have talked to his followers, and obviously they followed everything that he said and said, hey, let these guys come in. We'll be okay. But we don't know it would have happened that way, but it definitely wouldn't have evolved. Well, I heard that it was one of the biggest shootouts in North America since the Civil War.
I heard that too.
So, you know, I think, you know, and this also coming, like you said, months after Ruby Ridge, where they did something very similar. They had
They
a
did
warrant.
something wrong there, and
Yeah.
they didn't learn their lesson, and then they repeated the same thing, but in a huge scale at Waco.
Well, where it was similar was, you know, they tried to sneak up on this man, and they ran into his boy and his dog,
Weavers.
and one of their agents died, and his son died. And so after that, they were out for blood.
They
And I
also
think that's
blew away
exactly
his
what
wife.
happened here. Yeah. Yep.
Standing
They
on
did.
the porch.
Who,
Sorry,
Angela
she's
Koresh?
getting
asked if they
passionate.
hold the government accountable. They never hold them accountable after this stuff, Angela. They let them squeak their way out of it, and that's why it happens again. All right, I can stop that screen share. Okay. I keep getting to close tabs as I stop this stuff. Go ahead,
So
Edward and Dick.
high control groups, right? You're not able to raise concerns, complaints, grievances. You know, everyone is 100%, you know, committed to the leader. If such a forum exists, it's only accessible to certain members, only male members or long-term members. Group leaders encourage questioning, but only in the early stages of your association with the group and only on their own terms. They'll encourage you to check things out, but they will steer you in the direction of approved sources only, which defend the doctrine of the group. They'll create the impression that these sources have wider recognition, acceptance, and authority than they in fact do. Dogma taught to the group is contradictory, confusing, and internally inconsistent. One common example from high control Christian groups is that you're told that God loves all people or that God is love, but soon you are also told that he hates gay people and infidels. You may also be told that God loves you, but then later told that he hates the way you are and that you deserve punishment, even death.
The hell are you reading?
I'm reading signs that you're in a cult, in a control group or a cult.
Oh, okay.
Dogmas are not backed up by evidence or information cross-referenced from multiple reliable sources. You can see no real evidence that proclaimed historic supernatural occurrences or miracles are anything but mythical stories. All cultures have their myths and legends after all. Or that they proclaimed contemporary miracles are anything but illusions brought about by mass hysteria.
You guys
Yeah.
ready for me to play the interview of the survivor?
Absolutely.
All right, I think everyone's getting tired of talking and needs a little break.
Yeah, play it.
I'm getting it pulled up now. Okay, let me know when it's on the screen.
It's full screen and playing.
She
I
is
don't
still
hear
like,
anything.
so this woman is still like so like authoritarianized by David Koresh, who's been dead
93,
since
a
93.
church and its members known as Branch Davidians came under attack by the ATF and FBI agents. For 51 days, the Davidians and their leader, David Koresh, stood proudly. On April 19th, 1993, the Davidians and their church were burned to the ground. 82 people cherished during the siege. 18 were children, 10 years
82.
or younger. And there's all the names.
They lost the element of surprise they should have stopped right there. Frankly, if they thought David was such a criminal and they had so much evidence against him, I don't understand why they didn't just get him jogging in front of their surveillance house, or David had taken them to a firing range and shot with them. So they kept saying how they were scared that Koresh was going to shoot them at any minute, but they hung out and they went off site with David. So that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. You know, the whole thing could have been avoided, should have been avoided, and David should have had his time in court.
That's the book he wrote. It's probably on Nick's floor.
There were a bunch of doors were slamming, and I could hear all these things going on. And David came to the top of the stairs. I was in the cafeteria, and there was a couple guys with him, and he says, "They're coming. They're on their way. Don't anybody do anything stupid. I'm going to go try to talk to them." So he went to the front, and everybody that was at the front door tells me the same story. From Jamie Casillo to Greg, a lot of these people told me the same story. And that was that David went to the door. He had it in his hand. He said, "Hold on, there's women and children here. Let's talk about this." And the door flew back in his hand from the velocity of bullets hitting it. Perry Jones, who was his father-in-law, 70-year-old man, got hit in the stomach and went down screaming. And that's when some of the people started firing back. Now, we did a lot of research for the book, and I learned actually a lot of things I didn't know from just being a witness and being there, from the research we had done. And, you know, one of the things was that some of the trial testimony in San Antonio indicated that some of the first shots were fired. One guy said he was reaching for his firearm and it went off, and he believed he was the one that fired the first shot, one ATF agent. That testimony was recanted later when it came for his testimony in front of Congress. That happened a couple times where their testimonies were recanted. The team that went to suppress, quote unquote, the dogs or shoot the dogs, because we had 5 Alaskan Malamutes in a penned up area, they shot the dogs first thing and just murdered them. Some of the trial testimony indicated that those were the first shots being shot at the dogs. Now, one of the issues that I have, and in one of the books that I'm not gonna name the name of the book because I don't want you to buy it because it's complete it's propaganda. He names the ATF agent that was supposed to go at the dogs with a fire extinguisher, as if to suppress the dogs with a fire extinguisher. That's something they put in their movie Ambush at Waco, which I found to be a propaganda film completely. It was one of the first movies to come out. Even the writer of that movie has disowned it and apologized to the survivors because he was just giving all of the information from the ATF and wrote that film. Long story short, in that film, they show an agent going at the dogs with a fire extinguisher. They didn't have fire extinguishers. They shot the dogs first thing. So for them to continue to perpetrate this propaganda 30 years later, I find personally very offensive. I hate to use these terms, the forces of Babylon, if you will, or the forces of power, very arrogant. And that's how we view these people all the way through. Like they would get on the tanks and moon us and flip us off. And, you know, there were periods of time during the siege where people would exit the building and a flashbang grenade would be thrown at them. It seemed like they were always trying to get us to shoot at them somehow. Yes. They were always trying to make be aggressive. Where he was arrogant, where he was angry, and obviously was not thinking clearly. Well, they had the speaker system going 24/7. You got a bunch of people you say are religious fanatics, right? And you're going to keep speaker system on them and play it 24/7 to make them crazier? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like they're going to make, like people are going to make rational decisions under those circumstances. It's just not going to happen. But I would like to talk about the CS gas that they use. Yeah. CS gas is it's banned under the Amnesty International Geneva Convention. We can't use it. Against we can't use it against foreign forces. It's a riot control agent. In the actual manufacturer's booklet, it says only to be used outdoors, never indoors. It's especially it could be harmful to children, older people with smaller respiratory tracts. This is the gas that they chose to use, a gas that is banned internationally. Right. Not only that, but the delivery method when you're using the ferret rounds of the CS gas is methylene chloride, which is one of the ingredients that's used in paint thinner, something that is actually mildly flammable. So they were using the CS gas saying it's not flammable whatsoever, but the amount that they used was absolutely incredible. I think it was 400 or 388 ferret rounds before they exhausted their supply. and this is supposed to be over 2 days. They exhausted their supply by 10 a.m. And then they started to use the tanks to come in, take out sections of the building and spray the gas in. And when they took out the sections of the building, they created these huge holes in the building. If you talk to anyone that is a firefighter or a fire marshal, that's an oxygen flow system. If you look at an aerial of the building, you can see the tanks have made a fire break around it. There is nothing that'll burn around that building. I can't say that's a coincidence, man. I mean, you know, when you put it all together, it looks pretty nefarious to me.
Okay, so that guy actually wrote a book. Is that one of the books you've got, Nick?
Probably. What was his name?
David
Thibodeau.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but he was. I've seen him give promote his book though. He was actually the drummer in the band. And he was the one that they brought in from California to be a drummer in David Koresh's
I saw him.
band.
There was interviews of him also when he was younger, like when it
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
When he talked about the drumming, and his mom was real
Yes.
active in the siege too.
Yeah. I believe the dogs were mastiffs, by the way, from what the book I just was. Well,
He said what kind of dogs they were
He
in
said
there.
they were huskies, but the book that, you know, my girlfriend is speed reading right now just happens to say they were mastiffs. So, but one way or another, you know, they were still dogs. They shouldn't have been shot.
This guy Thibodeau, did he go to jail at all for this, or?
All the adults that came out except one went to jail, from what I understand. Not positive, but there were so many different accounts of all this stuff that I was digging through. But I think they all, even some of the adults that you know, there was one lady that they her kid was already sent out, and they're like, you know, during the negotiations, they're like, oh, he really needs you, and he's sad, and da 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 da.
Yeah.
She came out, they handcuffed her, threw her to jail. So the other people inside are watching this. So it's like, what incentive would they have to come out?
Yeah. Why the fuck would I
when
come
they're
out? You're just
watching
gonna
their
throw me in
friends?
jail.
Yeah, their best friends walk outside and get thrown in jail and not even taken to their kids.
I came across why the dogs were shot, and I think I'm even dumber now for having read that in the book. The FBI believed that there was possibly bombs in the dogs, according to. Hang on, let me see that book.
Shit.
Let me see the book. The name of the book is Waco Rising by Kevin Cook. It just came out in March this year, and that was the claims that were made. Puppy bombs is what they call them. How dumb is that?
Well, they had to make justifications for things they did.
Absolutely, they did, and that's all they did afterwards. The winners get to tell the story, right? And I think that's kind of what happened in that case. But on the other hand, you know, I mean, the Davidians were, the Davidians as a people were probably not a bad people, but David Koresh himself and his cult that believed that he was God or was going to be reincarnated as God's soldier to lead the army on earth. After,
but they do tell us there will be a second coming. So strict Christians are always waiting for it, you know?
Right. I don't know if it was Edward I was talking with about this earlier because we chatted, but I don't know if he really believed that himself. I think he needed, maybe it was me and you.
Well, Charles Manson told his family he was Jesus too.
Yeah. It's just another method to use to control people, to put you at a higher place than the people around you.
Well, you said his brother was in a Texas state mental institution.
I hadn't found that. Edward found that.
Well, somebody had said
I thought that wasn't his brother. That was the people that used to run the Branch Davidians.
That's what I came across, but I mean, there's so many conflicting stories.
He kind of took over someone else's church.
Yeah. The one that I read was out of a book that was called Waco by Jeff Gwynn that just came out in March this year. And that was just the prologue about what the Davidians were. And that they didn't say anything about that fight, I don't believe. But yeah, it doesn't say anything about his brother, but that doesn't mean it. Wait a minute. Huh. You better watch out, Koresh added. There might be a bomb in there. Kavanaugh laughed, a puppy bomb. So it was actually Koresh that made the threat that there were. So I'm thank you for finding that. Puppy
Man,
bombs.
she's good. Don't let her go. She's like a researcher.
Oh, she's a speed reader. How many pages in that book?
She'll have 4 books done by tonight.
250, and she's 3/4 of the way through it since we started. So
wow.
I mean, there's a reason she works at a library, right?
Right.
She's the smarter one of us. Why the hell she's still with me, I have no clue.
Edward, Matt, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Edward, did you have more that you wanted to add about cults and how they, how they control their subjects?
Edward's outside smoking, probably.
Yeah.
He's quiet.
No, so here's what happened. So Koresh, apparently, according to this, there was a battle between him and George, or whatever. George was thrown out of Mount Carmel, right? George Roden was. Koresh came. Oh, he joined the Davidians and he started sleeping with George's mom. George's mom was Lois, right? Lois was the one who was running the cults at that time. So Koresh started having a sexual relationship with Roden. This is according to that David Thibodeau or whatever, who we just listened to, who wrote that book.
Yes.
So Lois Roden was having sex with David Koresh.
Yeah, the wife of the guy that used to run the Davidians.
Right, but she's currently running it now because he's dead, right? So Koresh began to claim that God had chosen him to father a child with Lois, and that child would be the chosen one. Lois allowed Koresh to start teaching his message, which caused George to have an issue with it. George got sent off, and David Koresh took over. Pretty much is how that went down. According to this now. According to what's his name? That's David Thibodeau says that's the story.
I saw that history chronologically, like everything you just went through. I found that in multiple things that I was doing internet searches on over the last 2 days. So a lot of media outlets, I'm sure they didn't all get their information from David. I think that's probably accurate.
But the Justice Department has to say that George person was George Howell, David Koresh's brother, which is not the case. But according to the Justice Department, it was the case that they are family. So I don't know.
Yeah, that pretty much mimics what I have in the prologue of this book here, Edward, that I was reading out of. The history of the Davidians. So,
right.
And they're still there. I mean, they're still like where that memorial is.
Oh, yeah.
They
built a memorial shrine there.
Yeah, but I mean, they're still like that church is moving on. I mean, they're still there doing their thing. I mean, I don't think they're doing the same stuff they did when Koresh was, telling him he was God. But yeah, it's like an ongoing church.
Sorry, I'm perusing a book for a second.
Travis throws in 33.
So there was still that power struggle, you know.
Yes, absolutely. But I heard somewhere, and I can't remember where, Edward, but there was actually some type of gunfight or some type of charges where
That was
Koresh
Koresh, yes.
got arrested, and when he came back, he just assumed control. Like they both got arrested. George and him got arrested. When he came back, he just ousted him and started banging the 70-year-old leader of the cult. When
I
he was like
saw
20
that
years
in
old.
2 or 3 different places, but I don't have it pulled up, so I can't like factually state
I'm
it.
trying to find it.
Yeah, but you're right. It's like I saw that several places about he was prior arrest.
Okay, here we go. George Roden was the American leader of the Branch Davidian sect, a Seventh-day Adventist group. In 1987, he was evicted from the Mount Carmel Center by his rival David Koresh. He was later confined in the Texas Mental Hospital for a 1989 murder until his own death in 1998.
There you go.
Vernon Howell, known as David Koresh, arrived at Mount Carmel and began a sexual relationship with this guy's mother, Lois, who was in her 60s. Koresh justified their relationship by claiming that God had chose him to father a child with her, and he would be the chosen one. George Roden felt that his position of leadership was threatened and felt deeply offended by Koresh's relationship with his mother. He filed a lawsuit in federal court alleging that Koresh had raped Lois and brainwashed her into turning against him. A federal lawsuit.
I just found a whole chapter on the shootout at Mount Carmel involving George Roden and Vernon Howell. So apparently, Vernon Howell and his supporters did leave Mount Carmel in '84. So there was an initial kind of triumph for George.
Vernon Howell is Koresh, just so everyone in the chat remembers.
Right. Well, this. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm speaking pre him turning his name to David Koresh. But it was when he came back that things didn't go so well for George. Yeah, there's a whole chapter on that here that I just came across in this book. So,
well, okay. So in 1984 or 1985, Roden said that Koresh started a fire that happened there that ruined their administration building, $500,000. So they said that Koresh did it, and they forced Koresh and his group of people off the property. It was 2 groups of people at this point.
Yes,
there was one following George and one following Koresh.
Yes.
So Koresh's people got thrown out.
Yes.
And then they came back in like the 87, 86, 87, and ousted George.
It was actually after the death of Lois in '86 of breast cancer. She was considered Mount Carmel's stabilizing influence. And believe it or not, George started losing his followers after she passed away, and that's kind of how David Koresh slipped back in.
All right, here's where it gets into the shootout, right? November 3rd, 1987, Koresh and 7 followers returned to Mount Carmel, heavily armed, wearing camouflage clothing. They stealthily entered the compound, allegedly to obtain a photograph. However, they did not bring a camera, but carried weapons and a map of the grounds with positions to occupy. They found Roden crouched behind a tree with an Uzi submachine gun, and a gun battle ensued for several minutes. Roden fled the property with wounds to his hand and chest. Koresh's companions were found not guilty after a 2-week trial for attempted murder in Waco, and a mistrial was declared in Koresh's case. Their weapons: 5 .223 caliber semi-automatic rifles, 2 .22 caliber rifles, and 2 12-gauge shotguns, which had been confiscated by the police, were returned as well. The shootout at Mount Carmel was described by the New York Times as a foretelling of the violence of the Waco siege. Koresh and his group started paying the back taxes of the property and treating it as their own. In March 1988, Roden was put in jail for a total of 9 months under contempt of court charges, first because of his use of foul language in court, and then for living on the property after being ordered to neither live on the property nor call himself the leader of a religious group. In a 1979 case, the next day, Koresh's followers moved from their headquarters in Palestine to Mount Carmel. In October 1989, Roden killed Wayman Dale Adair by shooting him. Adair was also struck in the head with a hatchet. Roden and Adair were sharing a house in Odessa together that was converted into efficiency apartments. Ed Air was just a person who came to Roden's home to share a divine revelation that he was a messiah. According to a newspaper report from 1993, Roden said that in 1989, that shooting, he was defending himself from a hitman sent by the cult. Put on trial for murder, Roden was found not guilty by reason of insanity, confined to a mental hospital where he spent the rest of his life in Big Spring, Texas until he died. I'm wrong. He walked away from Big Spring Hospital and went missing for 4 days. And then they found him. And they said he was not manifestly dangerous, and confined him to Big Spring again. And then he was escaped again in 1998 and was found dead from a heart attack on the ground of the state hospital. So that is where he ended up dying after escaping 3 fucking times.
Confirmed in the book that I was just reading as you were telling that story. They went in at 3 a.m. in the morning, dressed in camouflage. I don't know if there's really anything I can add to that. I did see something.
Pretty much it went just how I said it did, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I was reading something that worked then.
Yep. April 1988 was the trial. For
Koresh
that.
or the other one?
I believe that was for Koresh.
Okay.
Koresh and the other 7 defendants returned to the Palestine camp on January 16th. 2 reporters from Waco Tribune Herald visited there. David chose not to talk with them, though he posed for photos.
Yeah,
So,
why the fuck not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, nothing else better to do. Yeah, I'll post for some. But yeah, I mean, everything that I'm finding in the books here does not paint the FBI in a very good light. And even in the book that I had read previously about the lead negotiator who was there for, I think he was there for the first, I don't know, 30 days or so. I can't remember the number. He was pissed. You know, he's in the FBI and he was pissed at the way they were handling it. I found something in a book here a minute ago where it was the Attorney General of Texas that said there's no reason why we should be moving tanks and stuff in to take down a religious cult. You know, there were people speaking up all over, but apparently 70% of Americans at the time who were polled supported the FBI.
I saw that too, and I was just like, "Whoa, these are
Whoa,
people."
yeah.
Well, they're watching one angle on their TV, and it was like before the day of all of us being on the internet, searching. And I think back then, it's like a lot of people just saw something on TV, and of course they're going to be slanted towards the ATF, like, "Oh, those horrible people," and just believe what they're told. Everybody's muted but me.
I'm reading. I found
Okay.
more on what was told to Janet Reno.
Well,
But not only the FBI, but the Army was involved at that point, and the decision to make sure that it was a non-Army operation, and that's where they put forth the rules of engagement.
funny you should say that, because I've got a video pulled up of a documentary called Rules of Engagement where they go over the FLIR video.
Yeah, the speaker was likely.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Kathy. The speaker was likely Brigadier General Shoemaker, the ranking military officer in the room. It's about the meeting that was had about the evidence presented, and they doubled down on the evidence that they presented to her, as I told you earlier, saying that the babies were being beaten and such inside. Sorry, I've been a busy little bee over here.
I know. The other two are muted. While you're looking at that stuff, I'm going to play a video.
Sure.
That section of rules of engagement where they talk about the FLIR video.
Sure.
This is kind of, in my mind, proof that the feds were shooting people.
And instigating. Yes, I've
And
seen this video before.
Executing it. Yeah, this is like.
From the helicopters. And
I'm
also,
not playing the whole thing. I'm just playing a
Yeah.
section of it. But these guys explain it really well.
Yes.
And I've got the link in the description to this documentary. Anybody that likes what I'm going to play here should go watch. It's like a really long documentary, so I'm just going to play part.
Yes.
But and then Nick, you can.
Isn't
look
it
for
called
stuff.
Waco Rules of Engagement?
Yep.
That's
It sure
right.
is.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll play this, and you guys can be looking up stuff.
I'll keep
and
at
then we
it.
can talk again after. Okay, it's gonna come on in a sec. I'm gonna do the share screen again. Do you guys see it on your screen?
Yeah, we see it.
All right, I'm gonna hit play. Is it large screen?
Yeah. You can
Yeah,
see our
it's full
logos at
screen.
the. Yeah, it's good.
So I can just hit play?
Yep.
Dozens and dozens of rounds have been fired at FBI agents. The FBI, in an effort
After this, I got to show you the 12 tribes buses. They're so cool.
restraint, has not returned fire thus far.
Almost 2 miles above Mount Carmel, a surveillance plane was photographing events on the ground with a forward-looking infrared camera, commonly called by its acronym, FLIR. Edward Allard helped develop the FLIR. He's a former manager of the Defense Department's Night Vision Laboratory and holds several patents on FLIR and night vision technology. Allard explains what happens as a tank approaches the rear of Mount Carmel around 11:16 a.m. That's the side the news cameras couldn't see.
Thermal imagery is not the same as black and white imagery. Even though we're going to see images that look like it's black and white television cameras, it is not. This type of imagery is the same type of imagery that was used by our armed forces in Desert Storm. The bright spots in this particular film are spots that are hot. The gray area are warm, we'll say, and the black areas are cool. They're relatively cool. They're still pretty warm for a Texas midday, but they're a lot cooler than the rest of the surrounding area. If you look carefully, what you will see is the exhaust plume of the tank. You'll see the plume twice when the operator steps on the gas. There it is again. And now what you will see is a short burst there. That short burst, we feel is a gunshot. The next view is a view in slow motion. As the vehicle approaches, we see the plume from the engine. And we have the gunshot. Now, freeze it there, please. You can see now the outline of the tank. You can clearly see the outline of the tank. There's the blade. There's the blade in front of the tank. There's the opposite side of the tank. This hot area back here is the engine, the deck area. And it appears that the shot that we're looking at is coming off the rear deck area of the tank. This particular one, the burst lasted about 1 second. And we will see shots similar to this throughout the tape, and nothing else appears with the type of thermal signature that we get of gunshots.
Did the FBI fire one shot, even one shot at the Davidian compound?
Not throughout the entire standoff.
What we're going to see here is what could be called an infantry tank maneuver. We notice the tank. This is the tank smashing into the building. And we'll also see gunfire, multiple gunfire, on the outside of the tank to the rear of the tank. Right now, we're seeing a close-up view of exactly the same thing. The important thing to notice is the gunfire, multiple rounds being fired from at least 2 different positions. And it's about 10 bursts in approximately 2 to 3 seconds. And according to our calculations, it indicates that both positions are firing automatic weapons. There is nothing in nature that would duplicate these type of thermal signatures, primarily because of the short duration of the bursts themselves. Nothing in nature could do that.
And I'll remind the American people one more time that during that entire time, those 6 hours, and indeed those 51 days, the FBI never fired 1 shot at the Davidians.
What we're going to see now is rapid fire in the courtyard right behind the dining room area. And you can see the fire going on, but it's difficult to see in real time. Now the slow motion shows things much more clearly. There are 2 positions. We look at the tape carefully. There are 2 positions, and apparently by the signature itself of the burst, it apparently is going from this area here into the dining room area.
What Allard saw was verified in an independent FLIR analysis done by Infraspection Institute for CBS 60 Minutes. Quote, "It was obvious to me on several occasions that there was gunfire or automatic weapons discharge seemingly fired toward the building from the outer perimeter," end quote. A second letter from Infraspection Institute states the fear that kept 60 Minutes from informing the American people. Quote, "Due to the potentially sensitive nature of this material and the resulting negative repercussions to infraspection, we are choosing to decline any further comments surrounding this taped incident and our subsequent professional opinion regarding its viewing," end quote. In addition to noticing the gunfire, Infraspection saw something else. Quote, "There were occasions on the video that seemed to appear as though people were entering, exiting, or being run over by an armored vehicle," end quote.
The whole idea here was not to hurt people, right?
That is correct.
Okay, I want to focus on that building right there and on that corner. You see it's now structurally sound. Would you go to the next photo? We're now looking kind of from the front corner. These are taken from the airplanes. You will see that where he is pointing, that section of the building is gone. Indeed, a great portion of the building is gone.
There was a discussion that there may come a point in this where we would try to poke holes in the building. My understanding.
I understood that.
Yes, sir.
This I don't see as a whole.
No, I understand that. Yes, sir. And I do not believe that there were any bodies found in that area.
The closest bodies were found a little further in.
Yes,
each one of those 5 bodies, it's reported, had extensive, according to the autopsy report, extensive body mutilation.
Davidian Stephen Henry had a gunshot wound through his chest. His leg was sheared off at the hip. James Riddle had been shot too, but a large circular portion of the right side of his chest had also been ripped out of his body. Riddle's red shirt was dangling from his wrist. His nearby coat had a red lining. This gunfire occurred at 11:24 a.m. About 10 minutes later, something got jammed near the tank's front wheel that caused the tread to come off. something that was mostly red. The available evidence indicates that could be James Riddle's body. To attach the disabled tank to a retriever and tow it away, men had to expose themselves to the gunfire FBI officials said was coming from the Davidians.
This is one of these things, Mr. Chairman, that nags at you. Damage to the tanks, common sense tells me, would be reflected in the damage report. Almost 2 months ago, we requested it. Over 2 years have elapsed since this occurred. Surely the damage report had been compiled. I realize the wheels of bureaucracy turn awfully slowly in this town, but after 2 years,
I'll be glad to look into it and see what we can produce.
As the gassing continued, the women and children went to the safest place left inside Mount Carmel, the kitchen storage room, a first-floor steel-reinforced concrete room, a former vault at the bottom of the square wooden tower.
Women and children ended up going in there, and because they didn't have gas masks and stuff, they were covering themselves with wet blankets and wet towels and things like that.
We knew that protection was in there. We believe we finally were able to make entry into that compound, and we were able to insert gas inside that protective area.
They actually drove right through the middle of the building into the kitchen area, basically at point blank range, fired gas into the concrete room where the women and children were. In a cul-de-sac like that where there was no ventilation, they must have been going through.
There was only one door.
Front, yeah. There's no windows, no back door or anything like
that. We put massive gas in there. Their gas mask by that time had to be failing.
They would be coughing, choking. They would probably be unconscious. Some of them would probably be dead. Some would be basically inert. They may still be alive. They may still be breathing, but they're not going to be doing anything.
In planning very large actions of this sort, like going in at the building, you do a lot of planning, like if this happens, then this, we'll do this. And if this happens, we'll do this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you consider that fire might well occur in this instance? And if it does, we do this?
Yes, sir. We did.
By noon, Mount Carmel was a tinderbox. A heavy layer of dried CS dust coated everything inside. Large amounts of kerosene and Coleman fuel from containers crushed by armored vehicles saturated the floor. Vapors from methylene chloride, kerosene, and Coleman gas filled the air. Huge holes ripped open by the tanks let the 25-mile-per-hour Waco wind blow completely through Mount Carmel.
When the governmental agency made a decision
to breach holes into the building. They set up a configuration of a pot-bellied stove. You wanted to burn slow, you close off the vents. If you wanted to burn fast, you open it up. Well, they made a configuration in that building that was consistent to a pot-bellied stove. Any type of fire that would start, even if there was no CS gas, if there was no flammable liquids, there was nothing just but ordinary combustible materials. Once you have a fire incipient in a building like that, it's going to grow to a fast, rapid propagation because of the venting.
At this front corner, a combat engineering vehicle has just made its last injection of CS. That small black dot is the nozzle tip, ice cold from the carbon dioxide propellant used to force the methylene chloride CS mixture into the building. Less than a minute later, the first of 3 separate fires that started in 3 separate locations within a 3-minute period began here on the 2nd floor, while the fresh mixture is at its most volatile as a fine mist.
Once ignited, both the CS and the methylene chloride will become involved with the fire and add to the fire. Those sources will tend to produce a fireball or a flash fire.
2 Branch Davidian survivors say they saw fireballs. Shortly after fresh CS was injected at this corner, the FLIR shows a 2nd tank that's pulling away. As the corner comes into view, a fire is burning there. David Thibodeau said he was here and saw a fireball that ran the front length of Mount Carmel, possibly igniting another fire here in the kitchen dining room area, right next to the concrete room where the women and children had been gassed earlier. About a minute after the front fireball Thibodeau saw, another armored vehicle drives up to the rear of the crushed gymnasium and also pulls away. A few seconds later, survivor Derek Lovelock says a fireball raced from the rear of Mount Carmel to the front, igniting everything in its path.
At this point, the back of the gym was thoroughly destroyed, and it greatly disturbed me. At that point, I'd lost all hope. At 12 o'clock, someone yelled from the upstairs that there was a fire. The front, I could not get to the front because of what the tanks had come in, the stairwell that was closest to the front. So I went to the stairwell in the back, because I'm thinking the kids. I'm thinking Serenity C. Jones. I was thinking of Isaiah and Joseph, some of these kids that I've come to know and love. I get up there, and there was a catwalk that was leading over the rafters of the church area. I walked to the front. I got to a blanket. I opened the blanket up, and a wall of flame shoots down the hallway in front of my face down to the other end of the building. It was the loudest sound I've ever heard in my life. I'm a drummer. And it was incredibly loud. I could not hear anything else other than this flame.
Well, do you know personally how the fire started?
No.
The place is beginning to fill up with black smoke, and me and Scott were stood there by the stairs, and there was this kind of ball of fire with a tremendous heat, which caused us to jump back out of the way. And it came from across. It came as if it came from the gym area across this way.
It's believed the fireball Derek Lovelock said he saw started here with this flash.
That flash was so bright that the operator of the FLIR thought it was so significant that he decided to fix his cursor in that area to remind him or other people looking at the tape that there was a very significant flash in the window. When we see it in slow motion and we see the flash, it appears to be a single flash, but it is not a single flash. It's actually 2 flashes. We got a primary flash and a secondary flash, and both of these flashes last about 1/2 second each. And they're most likely detonations inside the building itself.
Now, if some of you just saw this flash here, that is a momentary event. In my opinion, that's a reflection due to sunlight reflecting off some object in that debris.
Sunlight reflections would show up as a flash on regular film which records light. But reflections don't generate enough heat, say specialists like Allard, to create a flash on infrared. Infraspection analysts noticed the same flash. Quote, a portion of the video showed a flash or pyrotechnic explosion in one portion of one of the buildings, end quote.
The FBI made it clear from the beginning it used nothing that could have started a fire.
Non-pyrotechnic delivery systems were utilized to insert CS gas.
Pyrotechnic devices actually burn, and as they do, tear gas is dispersed.
This pyrotechnic projectile is one of two found in the rubble of Mount Carmel. It's a 40-millimeter military device that's fired from a handheld grenade launcher. This one was found here, near the corner of Mount Carmel where the first fire started. The other was found here, in the kitchen dining room area. "20 seconds after the two gymnasium flashes, still more automatic gunfire can be seen coming from the field to the left of the demolition tank.
We counted the number of gun flashes, and in this particular case, we got 6 flashes in 1 second, which indicates it's a rapid fire weapon of some kind. And we also can see from the tapes that the fire is going in this direction towards the gymnasium where we saw the flash in the window.
Is when the fire did start and the fire trucks did arrive, I didn't let them in. I held them at the checkpoint because I didn't want the firemen to drive into gunfire. I just wasn't going to permit it. And it's a terrible thing, a very terrible decision to have to make. But it didn't hesitate. It took me that 2 seconds to make it. But we held the fire trucks. So that was our fire planning.
Most of the remaining Davidians were concentrated here in the kitchen dining room area. It was their only way out except for one thing. 2 men outside were firing machine guns at them.
In the 51 days the FBI was involved, they did not fire a single shot. First, that would mean quite certainly that 27 of the people who died in the compound, I think the autopsy report showed 27, I may be off by 1 or 2, who died of bullet wounds. Those were self-inflicted or inflicted by other members within the compound.
These are embers that are flying off the building, but you can see up in here that this is rapid gunfire. When we analyzed the tape, we found out that there's 2 people there in this area here. and they're firing for about 30 seconds in this area right here where we have the burning dining room area. And it's almost continuous gunfire. And towards the end of this particular section, we find out that the people doing the shooting are actually retreating away from the fire and shooting as they're retreating.
The machine gunning of the Davidians trapped in the burning kitchen dining room was not only visible to congressional investigators, it was even visible to home viewers. So is the gunfire behind the tank smashing into the rear of the gymnasium. Neither was mentioned despite the fact the FLIR tape shown to the Joint Committee had far better clarity than the copy used in this film.
People see the flames real good from here.
There came a point in my rolling on the floor and trying to protect myself from the heat and being in the pitch black, not able to see, that the voices of those behind me screaming kind of got through to me. I recognized who they were, could identify the voices. It kind of galvanized me to just leap to my feet and jump or dive headfirst in the general direction of where I figured the hole was. When I stood up.
Should I stop this now, guys, or do you want me to keep it going?
Whatever you like, Kathy. I mean, you know,
I'm kind of
you've
waiting to see if
covered
the people in the chat wanted to keep going or not.
Yeah, we're getting some more people in the chat. Hey, Michelle, I saw Dub in there, Xander.
All right, I'll keep it going.
Bob.
It's not too far from the end.
Right.
We've got 27 people in here, so that's fine. Might as
All
well.
right, I'm going to put it back on.
Skin was rolling off my hands. My coat was all melted on my back and smoking. I looked back over my shoulder, and the hole had just come out with a mass of flames. And the first thought that came to me was, I'm the only one.
I'd feel better if I could go in and got him out without him. They didn't want him to come out. They wanted to kill him.
Fire was just going on and on. We realized nobody came out, thinking maybe my husband didn't get out, but my children got out. Horrible, horrible way to die. I try not to think about it because I keep thinking at some point they felt all that heat. I kept thinking the people in the square, they were the ones who maybe they probably cooked to death. I think it was to be this tragedy to show what kind of a people we have as a government.
As soon as the Branch Davidian Star David flag had fluttered to the ground, they ran the ATF flag up on that flagpole as a symbol of a military conquest, because the whole world saw this as a symbol that the battle was over.
I love this country. I love the flag. I love saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I still cry at the national anthem. I hope not only law enforcement, but I hope everyone does that. The FBI is not, as we've been labeled for the past 2 years, anti-religious rights or anti-personal rights. We have plenty of freedoms in this country, which I love. We have the freedom to stockpile weapons. I know I'm a Christian. I like practicing my Christian beliefs. I know I'm going to heaven when I die with my kids. I teach in charge of the nursery, used to do Sunday school, youth group leader. If someone tries to stop me from doing that, obviously I'm going to be upset. But that does not give me the right to go kill someone, go to my house using my children as shields and say, I'm not coming out. I've broken the law. I'm not coming out until God tells me to.
That is wrong. The hearings have been on for 9 days or so. And I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, because a couple people have said, what can we learn from this? In 9 days, I can't learn to be a legislator. In 9 days, y'all can't learn to be law enforcement officers. Byron, Floyd Clark, Jeff Jamar, Dick Rogers, like them or not, or like what we do for a living or not, they've been law enforcement officers, some of them, longer than I've been alive. And with that comes a lot of experience. What I'm saying is you have to trust the people in charge at the time. I'm low on the food chain, so I'm standing by what they did because I do what I'm told as long as it's legal and moral.
My God, torturing babies and saying it's part of their job and saying it's okay because their parents were bad. Our whole society is structured around the notion that if parents are bad, we protect the children even against the parents. In this case, the FBI and the government took the position, why, not only do we not protect the children, we use it as an instrument to try to get their parents to do something. We'll torture them so their parents will do right. Oh, my God, where did they think that up?
We thought that their instincts, the motherly instincts would take place and that they would want their children out of that environment. It appears they don't care that much about their children, which is unfortunate.
The backward bowed corpse of this 8-year-old girl shows what cyanide does to the human body. It makes the muscles contract so violently that they can actually break bones.
If one reviews the various use of cyanide as a method of putting prisoners to death, you note that these people are strapped in their chairs very heavily. And that's not to prevent them from escaping the gas. That's to prevent the individuals watching the execution, observing the effects that cyanide has on the muscles of the individual.
As part of the evidence response team, I was one of the primary photographers that had to photograph the evidence before it was recovered and as it was being recovered and placed into the appropriate bags. I photographed and processed David Koresh's living quarters, and I also photographed all of the bodies from what is termed the bunker. Having been in the position to walk, touch, feel, hold, photograph, observe a great majority of the bodies in Waco, I'm left with an overall disturbing, kind of haunting opinion that many of the people in the residence were homicide victims.
One of the FBI officials told Dr. Kirwani that they did not want us there because they wanted to do it themselves.
The FBI lab was extremely in a hurry to get the evidence from us, and it took us several weeks to go through literally thousands of rounds. And all the bullets, bullet cartridges, fragments of grenades, they were all turned over to the FBI lab.
No independent examination of any of that evidence has been allowed, including the illegal firearms the FBI says were found in the rubble.
Is that a weapon illegal that you found at the compound?
It's an AK-47 type rifle that has been converted to permit full automatic fire.
Making it illegal?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I was panning the whole site, and one of the Rangers came up behind me while I was still taping and hit me on the shoulder and said, "You can't be doing that." And so I said, "Okay, that's fine, no problem." And then he asked for the tape. And I said, "Well, I'm shooting for Dr. Kirwani, and I'm not going to give you the tape until he says it's okay." Finally, we found Dr. Kirwani, talked to him, and he agreed that it was okay for me to give them the tape, so I did. They promised us that all they wanted to do was review it and they would give it back to us the next day. And they didn't.
They told us that they had misplaced it. At one time, they told us that I have it in my briefcase and I'll give it to you. In fact, we said that we're going to delay giving the reports until you give a tape back. And of course, they said, sure, we'll give you your tape back next time we come to your office. We, in fact, suggested we would go to Waco and collect the tape from them. And they said, no, it's San Antonio office. And at a certain point along this discussion, they finally said, the tape is lost. We can't give it to you.
At this point, is there any doubt in your mind or the Justice Department's mind that the fire was set by the cult members?
I have absolutely no doubt at all that the cult members set it based on all the information that has been furnished to me.
The survivors that came out, their clothes smelled of accelerants. They smelled of diesel fuel. They smelled of lantern fuel. They smelled of lighter fluid. And the laboratory later came back and confirmed that they had done it.
I would like to know why key information as to how some of this contamination occurred was omitted from the reports, specifically those survivors who exited the south side of the building. They had to walk through an area that was contaminated by fuel from large tanks spilled by the government tank operations. The thing that really concerns me is why the building was so totally destroyed afterwards. After the fire was out, there was no firefighting whatsoever attempted. And then the crime scene, and it was a crime scene, was totally, absolutely destroyed. I've seen this happen before.
Did you see the FBI changing the crime scene in any way?
Yes, sir. As I'd said earlier and didn't get to finish the answer, they were moving the vehicles, which destroyed valuable trajectory evidence. And in the end, it turned out it didn't matter because the
But it didn't seem to be standard operating procedure. You don't consider that standard operating procedure, do you?
Certainly not in any crime scene I've ever been on. No.
We were commissioned early on in this as Deputy United States Marshals to carry a special commission so that we could prosecute federally anyone that lied to us. And we feel real comfortable, and Captain Burns does, that we were lied to.
Let me be clear. This investigation has not uncovered any evidence of political corruption or influences. We have not found any of that. There was no conspiracy to kill Branch Davidians.
The record of the Waco incident documents mistakes. What the record from Waco does not evidence, however, is any improper motive or intent on the part of law enforcement. David Koresh and the Davidians set fire to themselves and committed suicide. The government did not do that.
That assertion to me that the media and that the government has made a kind of blanket declaration that the Branch Davidians committed, quote, mass suicide, to equate it to a Jonestown, Guyana suicide, is the most irresponsible statement that can be attributed to anything having to do with the Waco incident. And I find it very offending to me and offensive to the memory of the Davidians and everyone else involved in this tragedy to wrap it up in a nice, clean, well, it was just a mass suicide, end of story, because it was far from it.
What the people believed that would happen was that God was going to judge either the world or them. If it judged the world, they would survive. If it judged them, they would promptly be in heaven. As one of them afterwards said, Livingstone Fagan, who lost a wife in the fire and his mother in the fire, he said, those of our people who died are highly honored in heaven, and so we should not worry about them. The thought was that the army of Babylon would kill them, as perhaps it ultimately did.
The way things are supposed to happen in this country is when someone's suspected of a crime, even if it's child abuse, even if it's capital murder, we give them a trial.
a jury finds them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before they go to sentencing. Then a jury or a judge sentences them, and an appeals court makes sure the trial was conducted with due process. And then and only then do we kill them. We don't kill them first, like happened in Waco on April the 19th.
Dang, that was hard to watch. I've seen it before, but it's still hard to watch.
Yeah, those pictures of the children
Yeah.
were pretty rough to watch.
Yeah. I don't know, Angela. I don't know how no one got in trouble with this, and I don't know if anybody did. I know that the sniper that killed Weaver's wife, they talked about bringing him up on charges. The FBI did. I don't know if they did or not. I don't know if somebody can correct me, but I'm not aware. I did find in some of the books that I was reading where Janet Reno tried to backdoor a way out of it, where basically she was watching this all unfold live, and once it started to get bad, she ordered them to back off. But what she didn't realize is the plan she signed off on didn't involve backing off, so they just kept going.
I'm just reading the chat.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Okay,
catching up.
Michelle, I know that you think that every disaster that happens on the planet is fake, but the people in this chat believe this. I believe this was a real event. I think the FBI lied, covered their asses, executed people, but I do not think that this was like a made-up TV production. And you said earlier in there that everyone in Congress is an actor. Are you serious? The new branch of the Davidians is still at the same place, Travis. They have the memorial there, and then when you go farther back, the church is there. I watched a video yesterday of a guy that like went there and toured around and kind of did some snooping. Hey, Sonny, how are you?
So they're still around, huh?
Okay, so I didn't misunderstand Michelle. She thinks all of Congress are actors, so no. They campaign, they run for election, they make our laws and pass crap. It's like, how can they be actors? I'm just not going there.
The numbers that I saw also, Kathy, said that they found 60 fully automatic rifles on site. I don't know. That was in one of the books that I was skimming through while that was playing.
Well, that's interesting. Wait, did you say semi-auto or auto?
Fully auto.
Okay. They would be able to tell that even if these things were burned. But the thing is that guy that held the one up in front of the Senate.
Yes.
That was spanking shiny. That thing was not from a fire. But I do think that even if these things were in the rubble, they would have been messed up, but they would have still been able to tell if they were converted to full auto.
And I did find another account on how they started dealing in weapons that didn't involve them having a federal firearms license. In the book, it said that they knew a guy that frequented gun shows, and to make money for Mount Carmel, what they did prior to starting in the gun trade, they had put a mechanic shop outside of Waco, and they met the guy through there, and he's the one that started setting them up to get the parts. Now, everything that they had, even the kits to convert the semi-automatics into full auto, were not illegal to have at the time. None of the stuff that they purchased or had was illegal until they modified it. So that was the other account that I found about the guns. That didn't involve a federal firearms license. So again, if you look hard enough, you can find just about any story you want to, just like the numbers. I've seen 3 different accounts of numbers in the books that I've looked at tonight and the stuff that I've been looking at. I don't think they really know. The new Netflix series really put a emphasis on the Barrett 50 cal. And
well, the whole Netflix theory or thing was total propaganda, in my opinion.
I think some of it was, but I think some of it was true. Like I said, I read the book by the lead negotiator there, and he was pissed. He was pissed off. Now, whether, he had the negotiation team had no say in the tactics that were being used on the compound. And that's just a fact. So there was a definite between the agent in charge, I forgot his name already, and the HRT and the negotiators. They were all not working off of the same playbook. One hand did not know what the other hand was doing, and I think that complicated the situation there also.
Hang on, I need to interject. First of all, don't derail the chat, because everybody in this chat is on point, asking questions, watching everything. And Michelle, I love you dearly. No one's calling you a liar, but every event in U.S. history is not fake. And you have it drilled in your head that they're all fake. And if you want to think that, go over to your channel, think it. I don't care. But I don't want you, please, 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 to derail the chat, because everyone was having good discussions about this. And fake, 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 and Congress is all actors and all that stuff. It's like, that's not what we're talking about in here. We're talking about the FBI lying, getting away with murder, and being caught in their lies, and we're having really good discussions about it. So I'm really sorry you don't agree with that. That's fine. You might be right. We might be wrong, but it's kind of derailing the chat a little bit, because Nick's given some really good information here, but that's all going on in the chat. Okay, I'm going to mute. Go ahead, Nick.
No, that was basically what I caught up on during the video, was the how they were purchasing the firearms. It was through a vendor. In other words, they were purchasing. Michelle, you're speaking your truth. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm getting a little distracted. They were actually originally, they had an automotive business. It estimated that it cost $125 a month to feed and keep every person at Mount Carmel fed and clothed and all of that stuff. Okay. So they had to have some type of business to take in money. They estimatedly had to bring in roughly 15 grand a month. They started off with an auto repair business. And they met a federal firearms dealer from a gun show. And that's how they got the quick into the firearms business. Now, I did find another article saying that they did have an FFL, but it sounds like they had access to an FFL. Not necessarily that any of the Davidians had it themselves, if that makes sense. And I have seen that documentary you just played, Kathy, a long time ago, and I just couldn't believe it. The flashes, the shots supposedly coming out of the back of the Bradleys or whatever. They don't call them Bradleys because they're, whatever, but the different flashes that look like either stun grenades or grenades and stuff like that. You're never going to really know the exact truth of who started that fire. The FBI says that they had actually planted a wire inside the compound, and they say they have on voice recording, hearing either it was Steve Schneider or David Koresh saying, start the fire. But, I've heard that recording. I can't remember where, but I truly believe that it was It was the gas that started the fire, the CS gas that they put in there, as do many other people. Still awake, Edward?
I'm wondering about Edward and Matt. They've been quiet a long time.
Yeah. I'm talking
I'm
too
still
much.
here.
I wonder
I'm
where
still here.
Edward is.
I don't know where Edward is.
So what are your thoughts on all of this, Matt? This has been we've been going 2 hours now, and there's been a lot of information presented. That
Well, there's a lot of things I didn't know about this. I mean, I really didn't follow it, but I remember, back in the day when this was all going on and watching the news and, during the day and, the major networks would break in during daytime TV and they'll be showing all this. And, but really wasn't paying much attention to it then. But, just listening tonight and watching
there's
these
a lot. It goes
documentaries.
deep.
Yeah, it does.
Well, that
Definitely does.
documentary I just played part of, the link's in the description, and really that's a good one to watch slow when you're by yourself and really, hit the rewind once in a while when you hear stuff. I mean, in a live chat, it's like we're watching chat, we're talking and everything.
Right.
But that's a really good, they go into detail explaining and calling out the liars.
Well, but the government definitely lied on this. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
They lied their
I'm not
pants
saying
off.
what I mean, of course, if
Well, the Branch Davidians weren't the, I don't know, best people on the planet, but that doesn't mean that
no,
they
they
deserve
weren't.
to be burned alive.
No,
And when they were showing that flare, it's showing them being executed, before they died of the burning.
right.
And then the autopsies and stuff. So it's to me, that's just it doesn't weigh out. It's like what they did. Okay, arrest them, put them in jail. There's nothing there that deserves an entire group of people to be burned to death.
No. But, when they say, oh, well, it was the Branch Davidians that started the fire, and, other people are saying, it was the government. I mean, who really knows what really happened? But, but just watching this last video that you had played was pretty difficult to watch.
It was pretty difficult, but it did drill in it caught them in their lies.
Right.
I guess by them having to show stuff. So I see that how it was necessary to put that in there to get the point across. But yeah, it was hard to watch some of that stuff. When they had the thing of the red jacket underneath the treads of the tracks of the tank, that was kind of sad.
Yeah. I mean, they were. I wish none of this had never happened. I wish they'd just done it peacefully and, they would have surrendered and everything would have been fine. But,
right.
It's not what happened. I mean, this is what happened. And it's really hard to see all that, and that kids were killed and, not just kids, but, anybody, adults and kids were killed. And it's just sad. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that whole situation. And Pastor Mo said it earlier in this live, and it's really stuck in my head that why didn't they approach him when he was not at Mount Carmel? That would have been the right thing to do, right?
Right. He goes to the grocery store, goes jogging, walks the dog, whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
It's like this didn't need to be this huge, barrage of, tanks and helicopters and 75 ATF agents. It's like, seriously, he didn't have jack shit. And even if you said that they found those automatics in the rubble, that still doesn't amount to them needing to do this. If they
murdered,
thought he had automatics, I mean, if they really thought he had automatics, do they think it was a real bright idea to go siege him? that would even be more of a reason to just catch him at the grocery store and throw handcuffs on him, you know. Are you still there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just.
Edward, do you have a live scheduled? Someone in the chat just said you have 80 people waiting. Oh, maybe he left already to go. I don't know.
No, he's still in here.
Well, he's still in here and he's muted, but one of his people's telling him that he's late for.
That's not one of his people.
Okay, we've got someone either coming in here with fake accounts or just trolling. So, it's
Who is it?
it's just these different names that I've never heard of are showing up in chat, bitching at me about what I said to Michelle. And it's like, Michelle and I know each other well. We both know what the other person thinks, you know, so this other person is going to come in here and start shit, and I don't know who it is. So it's like the chat, we were having a great discussion, everything was flowing good, and now these. Oh, they're waiting for you, Edward. I don't know if he fell asleep or not, because he might just be
He might be.
fiddling, getting his chat ready to go.
Sometimes he's talking to people in the background and stuff like that too. Or
Are you
somebody
guys
called
ready
him
to
or-
end? Because I think we put all the information out that we had found.
Yeah, I think that's a good place.
We've been going like a little over 2 hours.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I will follow
Edward will
up.
come back and wonder where.
Yeah, where everybody's at.
Where'd everybody go?
I will put the books that I was using for reference in your comment section, so people can take a look at them if they want to.
Well, thanks
Yeah,
for
put
coming
them in
on,
the
Nick. We
comments, and then I
appreciate
can
it.
pin it at the top.
Okay, I will
Yeah,
do
it was
that.
great having you on, Nick, and thank your girlfriend too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was awesome. I mean, she helps me a
Speed
lot with stuff.
reader, yeah.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she just blows through books like it's nothing. So, you know,
wish
to
I
have
could
that
do
type.
that.
Oh, I do too. I just I don't have the brain for that. I mean, I was skimming through stuff too. I mean, we had 4 books there. So I will definitely get those into the comments section for you, and we can tag them or do whatever you want. So, anyways, y'all have a good night. Thank you so much for having me on, Matt,
Thanks for
Kathy.
coming on.
It was
We
a pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, this was a good show. I mean, we got a lot of stuff out there. I mean, like I said, it wasn't our stuff. It was just stuff we found when we were looking. But it was a really good discussion. So I think it went really good. Everybody have a good night. Edward's getting ready to do a live if you guys want to jump over there. And thank you all for coming and for watching, and everyone have a good night.
Good night,
And
everybody.
I will see you later.
Take care.